I may have just experienced the greatest expansion to a game I've ever played. So over the years, I've played a lot of DLCs and expansions to games. Some have been good and some have been absolutely great. And there's a few of them that you generally feel like they could have been their own game. I've played great ones like the Fallout DLCs, the Elder Scrolls DLCs, some of the best I've ever played, which was the Witcher expansions. And I've played ones that you can consider older ones these days, like the GTA 4 expansions that they brought out with the Ballad of Gay Tony and Lost and Damned, which were absolutely great for the time, and they're still great now. And to be fair, I'm still yet to play some of the expansions that are considered the best of the best, but from the expansions and DLC I have played over the years, I feel like I've had my fair experience of great expansions. And that's probably one of the reasons why Phantom Liberty surprised me so much. But before I get into the why, I need to give a little bit of context with my experience with Cyberpunk 2077 first. I actually got this game when it initially released on the year 2020, and it's safe to say I didn't have the best experience with this game. I had this game originally on the PlayStation 4 and it ran like, well, no, it didn't run. It didn't run at all. Literally, like, this was probably the worst performing game I've ever played. It was unplayable. And because of this, of course, I didn't end up finishing the game. Heck, I didn't even get through the prologue of this game. I didn't even get to the friggin' title screen. So I moved on from the game and, you know, didn't think about coming back to it. Until years later where I thought, you know what, I might actually try this game again. You know, now me having the PlayStation 5, I thought I can actually run this game, and it's been fixed at this time as well because CD Projekt Red brought so many fixes out, and I heard that, you know, it was a totally different game now. So I thought now's probably the time I'll jump back into this game. And this time I had an absolute blast. I absolutely fell in love with this world. I absolutely fell in love with the story. I went and did every ending you could on this game, the base game, because at the time I was trying to get the Platinum Trophy for this game. I didn't get the Platinum Trophy to get every achievement, shall I say. And then I left the game alone again. And it isn't until now where I just finally went, you know what? I've heard many good things about Phantom Liberty. I think it's about time that I jump in myself. Now, technically, Phantom Liberty actually takes place, I want to say, halfway to like 3/4 of the way through the game. It doesn't actually take place at the end of the game, which I didn't actually know until I started it up. I thought I was jumping into this game thinking Phantom Liberty is going to be the final chapter. And for me, it was. And I must say, I'm glad I waited to play this. Because by the time I actually played Phantom Liberty, I wasn't coming off the main story. I've left it for a year, you know, let the story of Cyberpunk sink in with all the different endings and all the different choices and characters that I met along the way. And then coming back to this game later on and experience Phantom Liberty, I feel like I've just experienced it like all over again, but maybe better, because now there's a newer story to experience, there's new areas, there's new weapons, there's new side quests. I felt like I was coming back to a world that had been changed, and as I've been playing through Phantom Liberty, I've been thinking to myself, this actually might be one of, if not the best expansion slash DLC I've ever played. Because Phantom Liberty isn't one of those expansions where you just, you know, get some extra guns here and there, get some extra skins here and there. It's a full-blown expansion. And at the very start of this game, you just think to yourself, I know this is going to be something special. Because this story starts off with you meeting someone called Songbird, and she comes up to V and says, I can cure you. The thing that V's been looking for through like most of this game, this person just comes along and goes, yeah, I can help you with that. She offers V the one thing that he's been wanting to hear this whole time, a way out and a way to live. It's safe to say this video is gonna have a lot of spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled on Phantom Liberty, then I would click away now or come back after you've actually played it for yourself. Phantom Liberty takes place in the area called Dogtown, and I will admit, this reminded me very much of a game that I love, Fallout New Vegas. And the reason for that is because it kind of reminds me of when you play Fallout New Vegas and you eventually reach Vegas. Vegas is divided into two separate areas, that being the Strip and Freeside. And Freeside's more of like that poverty-esque sort of place. And then the Strip is more like that more, I've got money, I can actually go here sort of place. It kind of reminds me of like a Night and Day system where This reminds me of Freeside because it's more of like a rundown area, and then normal Night City reminds me of New Vegas's Strip because, like I said, Dogtown is very much a rundown area compared to like the rest of Night City. But before we could actually enter Dogtown, we would first need to meet our first main character of Phantom Liberty, that being Songbird. The way we encounter Songbird is kind of unique and kind of familiar because rather than just being a regular NPC that comes up to you, they appear in your head, kind of like Johnny does. Songbird appears and has offered V a chance to live, but in order to do so, we first would need to help the president. In where it's safe to say that didn't really go very well to start off with, because at the start of this game, this happens.
You have to... Songbird! God damn it! Holy shit!
Her ship comes down and you have to go and rescue her. That's literally within like the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game, I want to say. It like happens and then you're like, okay, we're in for something here. And when you start going through this story, you start to feel like what this story's about. Because this very, very much reminded me of a film like the James Bond series or the Mission Impossible series. I was playing through this story and I was thinking to myself, is this a Mission Impossible mission? Because there's literally things that are happening in this game where you're having like your face swapped and this, that, and the other. And I was thinking, damn, this is very much a thing that Mission Impossible did. And there's so many different aspects where it reminded me of James Bond as well, which we'll get into. And I don't mean that because you're running around with guns, you know, infiltrating buildings and getting involved in government conspiracies. The entire structure of this expansion feels like a spy thriller, and I'm pretty sure that's what they went for. You've got secret identities, you've got face changing, double agents, people who don't tell you the full truth. There was many times in this game where I was just sitting there going, I generally don't know who to trust. There's so many different games where you actually play the game and you're thinking, yeah, you're a bit snidey, but I was literally sitting there like, I have no idea who is the person to trust here. Either you or you. I have no idea. And I was like, I don't think I've ever actually gone into some weird simulation like this before. And there's basically your character V who's thrown into the middle of it and he just definitely doesn't know what to do either. There's so many different choices on this that you can make and you're just like, I just don't know which one to say, which is good for replayability, I suppose. If you're midway through this video, please do consider subscribing. I really want to get to 10k one day, you know, that's like a dream. It'll really help me out if you would. I don't like begging in the middle of videos, but you know, if you like what you see, then please. Now moving on to the second person we're introduced to, Myers, who is the president that you have to save at the start of this game. In which I find interesting as well because this is another person that you can't trust. At the start of this game, I feel like Myers is one of those people where I felt to myself, she's just kind of like a normal citizen. She's willing to get involved, she's quite tough, and she even made me a spy, essentially. And then when you get to the end of this game, after you've like experienced what's going on with Songbird, you realize this person doesn't care about anyone and she's just out for herself. You don't really have much interaction with Myers after like the first quarter of this game, but I felt like I was looking at a different person later on in this game than I was at the start of this game. And that's where it kind of hit me where it's kind of like James Bond as well, because just like James Bond, V is constantly thrown in situations where he doesn't know how to get out of them and where the stakes just keep on getting higher. But there's one big difference. Bond usually knows who the villain is. And I was playing this like, either you're the villain, or you're the villain. There was about 4 different people I didn't know who the villain was. And I think that's what makes Phantom Liberty so interesting. Almost everyone in this game has an agenda. And you're just stuck in the middle just trying to figure out who the heck is right, basically. Am I being played right now? And most of the time you are being played by these people. And speaking of these people, the person that's probably the most one that strings you along is Songbird. You know, the one that we met at the beginning of the expansion. And the one who said, who can save V. And at first in this game, I felt sorry for her. Because she went missing and then you don't know where she's gone. And then eventually you find her. And then as soon as you find her, you kind of question, are you good or bad? Is she being used by Hansen? Did she set Myers up? Or is this just all one big ruse and she's just actually terrified for her own life? Eventually, I did come to learn like what Songbird's agenda was. She was terrified of the Black Wall, which is basically a thing that's overriding her mind. Then there's a certain place she needs to go so she can get the cure. And through this story, she keeps on promising V as well, if you come with me, you will also get cured. And along this journey as well, I was just going, okay, this must be the way to actually get cured. I didn't sit in this game thinking to myself, oh, this is halfway through the story, this isn't going to end very well, because there is multiple endings in this, and we'll get to that later on, in where myself was thinking to myself, maybe V actually might get cured, even though, you know, you've still got the end game part to play as well, and I knew how the game ended anyway, but like I said, I've done all the endings, but I thought, I don't know if this is actually one that can have a main ending as well. Turns out it did. But with this Songbird character, she just constantly keeps on telling V the things he wants to hear. I can cure you. I know someone who can cure you. Don't worry, we're in this together. We're both dying. She made you just feel like sympathy for her. Like through all this story, I was very much on someone else's side until I got to a certain part in this game and I thought, I might actually duck the other way now because I felt sympathetic for her, even though I felt loyal to someone else. And that other person felt like I was loyal to was Reed, which if you didn't know is Idris Elba. And where meeting this guy for the first time, I'm pretty sure I just dropped my knees because goddamn this guy's handsome. And I'm not like a massive Idris Elba fan, you know, I've seen films that he's been in, but I haven't seen the likes of Luther. But something I have seen is Idris Elba's veins. God damn, look at them. And then also another thing that I just can't get off my mind is why I have this such a good looking guy in this game and then give him this t-shirt that's just not been ironed probably ever. Like surely there's a machine in this game that you can just press a button, put the t-shirt in, and it irons a t-shirt for you, or you know, like it steams it out for you. No, I don't know why I couldn't get my friggin' eyes off this guy's t-shirt because the amount of wrinkles in it, but please, if you're gonna do the character justice, please give him an iron t-shirt. I like the realism, don't get me wrong, but you know, maybe he was just too busy to do that. But anyway, speaking about Idris Elba, he plays the character called Reed in this game, who was Songbird's mentor, and is kind of like the absolute opposite to what Songbird's going for in this game. Songbird just basically wants to be free of the government, she doesn't want to do the work for the president anymore, and she just wants to live. Whereas with Reed, I felt probably maybe a bit more sympathetic for him until I actually went with Songbird on my first playthrough, because Reed's one of those guys where he's just basically took everything on the nose. He's been left for dead, he's been screwed over left, right and center by everyone, but at the same time he just remains loyal. But most of the time when you're in this game, I don't know if it was like intentional, I don't think I've seen this guy smile once. There's so many different times in this where I was just staring at him again. Yes, I stared at this guy so much in this game. And he's just got a sad face every time. He just wants to be that useful guy to someone. He doesn't want to be a nuisance to anyone. He just wants to be loyal to the NUSA, which is the government. And also loyal to Songbird as well, because he wants to try and save her even though she screwed him over as well. I love how they're like mirrors of each other. Songbird, like I said, just wants to be free, whereas with Reed, loyalty is the main thing and he doesn't want to leave anyone behind. He can't let go. And both of them, as you see in this game, just get destroyed by their beliefs. And it's not until the mission where I kind of took a turning point, which was the mission Firestarter. And it's not until the mission Firestarter where I get a choice of which side I want to choose, either Reed or Songbird. But before we get to that, we actually need to talk about the main antagonist of this game, because he plays a big part in this. And that person is Hansen, the ruler of Dogtown, and the one who actually abducted, shall we say, Songbird, or so we thought he did, and he is the main antagonist of Phantom Liberty. Hansen is a war veteran who turned rogue against the NUSA and built up Dogtown to be his own sort of like government. I say build Dogtown, but he didn't actually build it. He basically took over it after the war. He basically didn't go back to the line of duty. Instead, he just took over it for him and his militia, and now he rules over the place. And when I initially seen like this guy, I just thought this guy was just some military guy who just like, okay, he's just gonna come up to you and maybe, you know, give you a little tussle here and there. I very much expected that to happen kind of like how it did with Adam the Smasher. But no, this guy is actually a really smart guy, and it's not until you actually start the mission Firestarter in where you have to go undercover as two twins and be try and convince him that you are the real deal. And this was easily like the most tense I felt in this game. The mission was to go and basically rescue Songbird, or you could side with Songbird and then escape with her. But before that, we had to get past Hansen. And V was in disguise as one of the twins that you meet earlier on when you go to one of Hansen's parties, which, pause it for a second, let's just quickly talk about this actual mission as well, because I went into this casino mission and I was just absolutely blown away by near enough everything in this. I just decided just to walk around for a good 10 minutes, just going around, you know, getting free champagne, getting free drinks at the bar, and just having a good time. When I was meant to be going like undercover to go and actually see where Songbird was, I just went, nah, I'm not here for that. Screw her for a minute, I'm gonna have a good time. So essentially in the casino mission, you meet two twins and you need to basically adapt their personalities to then basically become then later on by some like weird face transplant thing, you know, like you kind of get on Mission Impossible where like Tom Cruise puts a mask on, goes in disguise as someone else. And I remember little animisms that you need to like adapt into your personality to fit in with one of the twins. One of the twins doesn't drink because like detoxed his body from everything. He even like erased his memories for the last few years, and you just had to like do little things and try not to like make a hiccup, because otherwise Hansen probably would have had my head on a plate. This mission was very much like probably the best played out one, where I actually felt like this matters. Well, eventually when you get past this conversation with Hansen, the decision to make is right there. You either side with Songbird or you side with Reed. And this is where Phantom Liberty got to me. Because like I said, throughout this story, I was basically loyal to Reed. And then for some reason, I just went, you know what? Maybe Songbird's right. Maybe she could cure me. That little thing, you know, I can cure you. Even though Reed kind of said it as well, I felt like Songbird, because she was in the same situation as V, had more meaning to it, and I felt like, I feel like I can trust you. And Reed works for the government, so we know how the government works, but you know, you just seem like a lost person. I need to help you, and I want to help myself as well. Yeah, I think I made the wrong choice at the beginning of this, which we'll get into in a moment, but yeah. So with my first playthrough of this, I sided with Songbird and got the ending, which probably you're not all gonna think now. Because at the end of this, Songbird basically reveals to yourself, yeah, I've been lying to you the whole time. I can't actually cure you. There's only one cure, and I'm taking it. Bear in mind, the woman is literally dying right in front of me, and I go, screw you, call up Reed and go, listen, come and get her, because I've had enough. She's played me like a fiddle. Here you go. And I didn't have any conflict with Reed, and in the end of the game of this game, me and Reed, you know, we have that loyal trust again. I feel like, you know what, I should have trusted you from the start, Reed. And this is where it gets even more interesting as well, because you actually get a different ending this way, and V actually gets cured. Is this my favorite ending in the game? Probably not. This is probably like in the bottom tier of the endings. I still enjoyed it though, because at the end of this game, you basically can't have any implants anymore. You're just basically a normal human being. You're not a renegade anymore. You're not a nomad anymore. You're just regular old V as he came out of the womb, maybe with like a little dongle in his neck, but you know, it's just basically regular old V. You go back to Night City, you realize how much of a bitch you are because just some thug on the street just decides to go, hey buddy, you're not from here, give me whatever you're got in your pockets, and then he just bashes V down the stairs, and then you just think to yourself, is this worth it? Should I have just carried on and just tried to cure myself another way? And I just feel like with this game, it very much feels like you're in that character's body in this situation. Because if this game, for example, kept on letting you play and you were just in a normal body, rather, you know, having all like your implants so you can just like murk anyone over, you would just literally feel like a human being just like walking around like, damn, is this what life's come to? I'm now like a pencil pusher. I really, really enjoyed how they gave me another ending on this game. But then, if we rewind time again, you can also side with Reed. in where the game plays out completely different. This time you don't get a main ending, but this time you decide to jump into a goddamn horror game, because what the hell was this? I felt like I was having PTSD from friggin' Alien Isolation. What was this? I'm not like a horror game fan. God damn, this made me brick myself. That's not the right word. This made me shit myself. And to be honest, I wasn't actually going to go back and side with Reed. I was just going to leave it with, you know, I've done Songbird's ending. There you go. That's that. But I'm so glad I did, because I feel like you're going to miss out on so much more of this game's story if you actually just do one rather than the other. I feel like you have to do both to experience the whole story. You'll miss out on so much lore if you don't go with Reed's side, I feel like. Reed's side's a lot more fleshed out. You see so much more lore to do with Songbird and Reed. There's so many different like little flashbacks you see here and there, and like I said, it just fleshes the story out so much more. Whereas with when you side of Songbird, you just literally go on like a kamikaze going around trying to save her, and you just go around killing everyone. There's a little bit here and there like in a space station, which is cool, but apart from that, you don't really get much story lore and, you know, who she is. And when I sided with Reed, you got so much more backstory to do with Songbird, which made me feel sorry for her again. After, you know, I've just done the ending where I've just said, screw you. After this, I went, maybe I was wrong about you again. It also made me hate Myers more, because at the end of this, she basically wants you to put her out of her misery rather than going to work for Myers again, and I was sympathetic for her and I let her die. And then right at the end of this game, we see Myers once again and she wants to shake your hand. I said no, and then she said thank you for your service and pays you a measly 5,000 eddies. Yeah, screw this person. But I feel like this is actually the better ending of Phantom Liberty, even though it's still sad, because at the end, Reed actually lets go from the agency as well and, you know, goes on his own way finally. I feel like with the end of this game, there's not really a good choice you can make. Out of all the endings that I did on this, I think my favorite ending, which is probably going to be controversial now, is the one where it actually ended the game again. I felt like I just had like a bit of closure again, like, I don't need to go and carry on this game anymore to go and like do another ending. If I experienced Phantom Liberty, you know, where I probably should have experienced it, like 3/4 of the way through the game, I might have felt different. But there were certain situations in this where you're like saying goodbye to Johnny whilst you're like looking over Night City. And I thought to myself, this is a nice kind of send-off where V actually lives. Bear in mind, we're not basically the V we used to be, but you know, at least we're alive for now. For it very much did make me sad, you know, like leaving Johnny and just like leaving everything V knows behind him. His friends you can't really see anymore. You try and ring up all your friends. None of them want to be interested in you. Panam doesn't answer the phone, which is kind of a pain in the ass. No closure there. But then you eventually like see Misty at the end of the game. You realize how much she's changed. She's going out of Night City now. She's done with all of it. And you just think to yourself, wow. Maybe this is where V actually moves on.